So hello everyone, and welcome to my fourth video on Whisperknife. The first one was called Whisperknife the Basics. It basically just went over very basic stuff about it. It wasn't really getting any optimizing or whatever. It was basically a new Whisperknife. How do you basically start outputting damage easy without too much trouble? The second one was Vengeance's Pursuit, which is one of the most important skills the Whisperknife has that a lot of people don't use, and I needed to make sure that people know that that skill is vital to Whisperknife. And the third one was about something on a forum. I got into posting and a little bit of arguing with people, and I needed to explain what was going on there. And with that said, with that arguing and stuff, I did come to some realizations that perhaps my one or two of the things that I did in my testing was wrong, but it also goes through and explain that it doesn't really change anything in terms of how I play my character. Now, today's video, based on learning from those mistakes and wanting to optimize my class even more, is about how to take the next step and to apply other features that are beyond just Whisperknife, including things like your mount power, not mount powers, your slots, like the tactics and the art of, those type of things. And it's how to maximize some stats, and it's, there was one question that arose in my third video about whether to use advantageous position or dagger threat, and I have finally come to the answer to that as far as what I believe. And we'll get into all that stuff in this particular video. But before we do, I just want to say that if you like the content, you like what you see, and you want to see more, then I suggest subscribing and giving me a thumbs up. And then I will definitely put more content out. But for now, let's get on to the next phase of this video, which is and that's going to be about, do I choose advantageous position or do I choose dagger threats? In addition to tenacious concealment, which is one that I use all the time and we're never changing now. So the question is, as a second feat, do I use advantageous position or do I use dagger threat? And we'll get into that one next. So the question is, do I use advantageous position or do I use dagger threat? And the question arises from the basic fact that there's, for me, someone who tries to build a stable build, that I'm not swapping loadouts all the time, tenacious concealment is a requirement. But aside from that, there's only two other powers that I would ever use: dagger threat or advantageous position. Now, which one you use depends on the type of rogue you are and the type of fighting style you want to do. So if you guarantee yourself you're always going to be back behind the back of the boss, if you're in one of these type of fights where the tank is holding the aggro, there's a wide, this isn't SOD, this is MLMD or something, where there's a lot of space and you can always find the back of the boss, and that's how you want to fight, then I would suggest you use probably dagger threat at that point. That is what dagger threat would be meant for. But if you're like me and you don't spend much time at the back of the boss anyways, like, you're there sometimes, of course, but I don't guarantee that I'm going to be behind the back of the boss, then you should probably use advantageous position in that case. Because if you're not in combat advantage position, you can do a full rotation and that third encounter will be guaranteed combat advantage, even if you're not in combat advantage position. So it's a matter of every time I go through a cycle of rotations, that third encounter gets affected by advantageous position significantly. Whereas if you're always behind the back of the boss and combat advantage is not an issue, or maybe you use a Black Deck Scorpion, or I don't know what else you could do there, let's say, then you might want to use dagger threat. But we're going to show how advantageous position is extremely helpful on your third encounter in a rotation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a blitz, which is my third encounter. Yours could be lashing, whatever your third encounter is, okay? But I'm going to do one without combat advantage position. I will do a dishearten, and then I'll do a blitz. 271k. That's pretty crappy. Okay? That's actually terrible. Well, so if I was to do a regular rotation, and I would be taken out of stealth before I do my third encounter, that's the kind of output I'd be doing. Now, again, keep in mind, this is not buffed. I'm not using foods. I'm not, using massive debuffs and all these other things. That's for dungeons. This is just experimenting for the purposes of tutorial and trying to learn how things benefit. Okay? So, again, I will do a blitz, and I will double check, see what we get for it. I get 267. Okay? That's without combat advantage position. Now, to show how advantageous position really helps, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do just a very basic encounter rotation. It's going to start Disheartening Strike, and then it's going to go VP1, Shadow Strike, VP2, Blitz. Very basic. We're not going to get into extra at-wills. We're not doing the burn right now. The burn is a future part of this video. And we're going to show how advantageous position helps every time I use my third encounter. Disheartening Strike, Stealth, VP1, Shadow Strike, VP2, and Blitz. Now, my Blitz did 628k that time because it had combat advantage position. So that's a big, big difference. And if you imagine going through a boss and you're cycling through your encounters all the time, and you're doing that basic rotation, that'll add up over the course of a fight. Now, you can also argue that Dagger Threat can add up over the course of a fight too, because all your encounters, possibly your dailies and other things, are all going to be affected. But again, I don't optimize Dagger Threat the way I play, so it doesn't really help me that much. Versus getting significantly more damage on my third encounter every time I do an encounter rotation. Now, again, that is a full encounter rotation where all your encounters are involved. But as you know by now, if you played Whisperknife enough, and you're using the same encounters I do anyways, you're never always going to get 3 encounters. And sometimes you're going to get 2, sometimes you get this one, that one. It's the way it goes. But if you can guarantee when you exit stealth that you have that combat advantage position, it's a big difference in the end, because that third encounter is never going to have combat advantage position unless you're behind the back of the boss. Again, I will state, if you stay behind the back of the boss, you might choose to substitute advantageous position for Dagger Threat in that particular situation. But in general, most fights and the way that I play, I would always use advantageous position because of that, just that. If no other reason, just that my third encounter when I get out of stealth has a massive DPS difference. So the next thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at our mount selections, the powers whatever they call those things, the ones that particularly affect your rotation. So now we're going to look at the mount, whatever you want to call them. We're going to look in particular at the ones that affect, what am I doing? That affect burn rotation in particular, because this game is all about burns. That's one of the things that I've come to realize over the years is, I used to put Artificer's Enticement in because every minute I could, lower my CDs and stuff, but that really doesn't do much in the end. It usually just comes down to who burns the boss and burns, once we get group burns and all this stuff, especially in trials. So we're trying to maximize that now, and we're not going to use Artificer's Enticement because we don't really need it. Between Cavalry's Haste and Tactician's Precision, and those are the two that we're dealing with here. You can scoff at my other choices if you want, whatever makes you happy, but there really aren't that many good choices to begin with, so I'm just trying to find, other than the Cavalry's Haste and Tactician, the other ones are just filler because they're just really the good stuff anyway, overall. But these two in particular drastically affect your burn rotation, because when you do your daily, it does reduce your CDs, and in my particular rotation, I've already applied a couple of encounters, before I do my daily. So they get recycled. And they allow you to implement more encounters during the group burn window. Like there's the SOD window, and then there's the group burn window. Now, my new rotation, by new rotation I mean, compared to Whisperknife the Basics, which I didn't necessarily give you the full rotations in the basics video because I was coming from perspective of you're new to Rogue and you just need to learn some of the basics. But in this particular case, this is now we're trying to optimize. We're trying to get the best out of our rotations. Now, with these two in particular on your mount profile, you'll find that once you execute a burn cycle, that you can immediately start again because 2 of your encounters will be available. Now, we'll demonstrate that by doing a full rotation. And, I'm hoping that I'll not screw this up because, screw-ups can be pretty easy until it becomes, like, mentally ingrained in your system. But so, we're going to do a disheartening strike. We're going to stealth. We're going to VP1. We're going to SS. Then we're going to go Arty, mount. And then we're going to go VP2. And then we're going to go daily. And then we're going to go blitz. And there's a reason that we do that order. It maximizes your ability to contain as much as you can in the SOD window. And with the mount bonuses, it also maximizes as much as you can get in a group burn window. But let's just see if we can do it here and not fuck up. Here we go. VP1, stealth, disheart VP1. Artifact, mount, 2, daily, and then blitz. And for the sake of argument, let's just see. This probably wasn't the most optimal. Shadow Demise, no, that was terrible, actually. No, we're going to have to do this again because 3.9 million. Again, I'm not fully buffed. If you've seen my videos before, I try to ensure that you're aware that I'm not here to fully debuff and stuff. This is a demonstration. I'm not trying to show you record-breaking damage output, but 3.9 million is terrible. So let's see if we can do this again. We have all my CDs. Oh, no, we don't. Hold on. 13 seconds. So, we'll try this one more time. Hopefully the output will be better. But you can see how much faster that was. If you've done my previous videos, that comes out a lot faster. Okay. Here we go. It's the boss ready to try it again. So. Go and see what SOD did. $4.4 million, still not great. I mean, I've done as much as 6 million if I do. And part of it is that I'm not focusing as well on the rotation here because I have a video in front of me and stuff. But basically, that's that. I mean, if you compare it to my previous rotation, you'll notice that the daily comes after VP2. Because of a few things. One, with a tactician's precision and whatever, that means that when I apply my daily after VP2 gets its CDs reset, first off. 2, VP2 teleports to the boss so that when I apply my daily, it doesn't have to travel so far. So there's a speed optimization there. And it might be possible to get Blitz in an SOD. I don't think I've done it yet, but if you're real quick, maybe. I would say no. But then also, when you apply that daily, you get 6 seconds of combat advantage afterwards. So at this point, the advantageous position mentioned earlier is not affecting anything because the Hateful Knives gives you combat advantage. As I explained before, with the advantageous position, it's when you're not using your daily that you gain that benefit. But in this particular case, if theoretically you could change to dagger threat for a simple burn, then you would want to do that. But obviously you have to pick and choose and stick with what you pick. So the bottom line is that this rotation is easier to do, it's faster, it'll maximize your SOD window, and it'll maximize your burn window, because it'll give you more encounters in 15 seconds. And that is ultimately how to do a full burn. Now, I don't think I want to get anything more in this video. I want to keep, this is a very, very important aspect of Whisperknife, so I don't want you to be lost in translation of so many other things that I may or may not post on. I want, the focus of this video to be A, understanding whether dagger threat or advantageous position is the skill that you need depending on how you play, and B, understanding how to maximize a rotation where it's quick, optimal, gives the best out of your SOD window and the best out of your group burn window. And in order to do that, 2 of your mount powers are required: cavalry haste and tactician's precision. If you want to use artificer's enticement, and you don't think that those other ones that I have are particularly useful, and you think that you might benefit more from artificer's enticement, by all means. The other 3 mount things, you can use whatever you want. But what you'll find, though, is that artificer's enticement and cavalry's haste will, contradict each other. Like, one will waste the other. You don't need both. And at least not in my rotation. I can't speak for other people's, it's possible in a different classes of rotation. But as you see, the way I do my rotation, artifact, mount are called together. First the artifact, then the mount. So, yes, there's still a little bit more CD on my Shadow Strike, but that's what Tactician's Precision will do. It'll get rid of that one quick. After you do your daily, boom, your Shadow Strike is available again. So there's not really a need for Artificer's Enticement at this, and in the burn. Like if you want to use Artificer's Enticement during a regular dungeon or whatever, and you happen to use your artifacts more frequently, then yes, you could use it. That can help you in that situation. But I'm just trying to optimize for the burn. I'm not that concerned about that stuff. Again, I'm not an AoE mob guy, really. I mean, I use my Blitz and I use my Shuriken Toss, and I use my Vengeance Pursuit trick, which if you watch the previous video of Vengeance Pursuit, it'll show you how Vengeance Pursuit is not only an AoE skill, but a single target skill. But aside from that, focus on that rotation, and it'll be really, really good for your SOD and for burning when you need to burn. Now, again, you're human, I'm human. A lot of times I'm going to screw that up. The rotation's going to get mixed up or lost, or sometimes the group is in a burn and you don't have your daily, or sometimes your group is in a burn and maybe one of your CDs are off. It's never going to be perfect. But in a perfect situation, that's what to do. And good luck with your Whisperknife, and we'll see you next time.